candidates and so we are recording this for them and to share this. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming, each of you. We want to welcome you all. Candidates, thank you for stepping into the arena of leadership for our city. It's obviously in these times we need strong leaders. And now picture if we were meeting in person, I'd tell your name and there'd be a big cheer, right? Maybe 310,000 residents of Cincinnati would all stand up and cheer. But since we're on Zoom, cheering is kind of taken, it's not quite, it's pretty funky, but we can try with maybe a hand thing, you know, or something. So let's say the names in a special way. F-Tab Purival. This is in alphabetical order by first names. F-Tab Purival, Cecil Thomas.
Yay!
Yay! David Mann. Yay! Bobby Begtrup. Yay!
All right.
Raphael Prophet. Yay! Herman Najoli has declined our invitation to participate in this conversation together. I'm going to go real quickly with the setup and then we're going to dive right in with our mayors. We're keeping it very open rather than forum style. We want to make it where we see each other, be with each other. And so first we want to honor the co-hosts that helped make this possible or worked hard to make it possible. And I'm going to put on the screen, here are the logos. And Marty, introduce us.
Okay, well, first I am going to talk about Bold New Democracy, which is the sponsor of tonight's event. We meet weekly and we begin each meeting with this dedication. We work as political activists to build a bold new democracy that is passionate, progressive, and powered by people. And you are welcome to join us. Please look for our website and Facebook page to find out more. Another of Bold New Democracy's primary goals is coalition building with like-minded groups. And so we are happy to have co-sponsors who fit that description. I'm going to run down the right side of the page. We have 3 local Democratic Party groups that are co-sponsoring tonight. We have the Greater Cincinnati Dems, which is Democrats from Hamilton County and outlying counties. So we have Boone County, Butler, Campbell, Claremont, Hamilton, Kenton, and Warren counties. That's the Greater Cincinnati Dems. North Erie Hills Democrats, we just renamed that group. It's a group from north is North Side, Erie is Mount Airy, and Hills is College Hills. So North Erie Hills.
It just get the money.
Pardon? Okay, we have West Side Democratic Club, and they have a long history.
Pardon me, Marty. Would everybody mute themselves at this point and then unmute when it comes time to talk?
All right.
Okay, I feel like somebody should unmute.
Okay, I am now unmuted. It was hard to go ahead. Then we have the West Side Democratic Club, which is a really well-established club. They've been going since 1967. They previously were the Green Township Democratic Club in the western part of Hamilton County. They changed their name just a couple years ago to Western Democratic Club. And if you look at their website, you'll see they have very friendly and informative gatherings. A lot of times they invite local politicians to their gatherings. And then Going over to the left side, we have a group that sounds very interesting, Girl Power Politics. It's a youth-run, nonpartisan organization that was started right here in Cincinnati, and its purpose is to close the gender gap in politics by empowering young girls to pursue political careers. They've been so successful locally that they've initiated several other clubs in Ohio and across the country and even internationally. So that's Girl Power. Neighborhoods United is a reducing gun violence organization in Cincinnati. And they've met with local community groups, and they focus not just on gun violence
2021
mitigation.
maybe is the password.
They focus not just on gun violence mitigation directly, but on the pressing needs of young people in health, education, family support, social and spiritual development, and economics. So that's a good group. And then going back to the top, right in the middle of the top is CIRRT, which is a group that works very closely with Bold New Democracy. It's Cincinnati Indivisible Rapid Response Team. It's one of a large number of indivisible groups formed across the country with the immodest purpose of saving democracy. Our indivisible group is one of the most active groups in Ohio. We meet every week and we read our mission every week. Together, we are taking political action based on understanding and strategy to protect people, the U.S. Constitution, good government, and the earth. So those are our co-sponsors and our sponsor, and we are very happy to have all of you with us and all of our other guests.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marty. It's so important. We're going to have timed our sharing from questions and from our candidates will be timed so that you'll know about that in a moment. But Marie Dominique Philippe is our time manager. Would you share how you're going to do this, Marie, and perhaps the purpose?
So you will hear this. So I will be the timekeeper, and we decided to have 90-second introductory remarks for every candidate. To answer the question, each of you will have 60 seconds to answer the question. We decided to make it short to be fair to everyone, such that everyone can have is a word to say, and also that we can have many questions, and that will also foster the idea of going straight to a key point in the answer. So watch out for this.
Yes, thank you. We're also going to rotate the names. You know, I mean, you can do it alphabetically, you can do it backwards, forwards, and that. Antoinette, what is our method for rotating this speakers of the speaking times for our mayor candidates?
Yes, well, having a mayor in Cincinnati is a very long historical tradition for our city. And also Rookwood pottery is another long historical benefit or blessing in our city. We thought it might be fading away, but it reemerged. So I found today a box from Rookwood pottery, and historically I have put each of your names on this special piece of paper into the box, and I will pull your names out in a random order. And so the first person pulled will be the first one to go for that question, and then I'll continue to pull names until all of you have had a chance at that particular question. I do ask your permission to call you by your first name, or I could say both of your names. I wasn't sure if you would like to hear Mr. or Senator or okay. So is it okay if I call you by your first name, please? Okay, thank you very much.
I would
Terrific.
prefer clerk AFTAB. Just kidding.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous title.
That's right.
Okay.
Major clerk, but still. But thank you. Let's take a look quickly at the guidelines, and then we're going to dive right in. Doing the preliminary work, we've learned from our years of working together that it's easier to kind of set the guidelines in advance, the organizational, and then it goes. Everyone mute yourself. Remember to unmute when you're ready to speak. It's easy to forget, but do your best. Raise your hand. Part of the questions will be in person. Raise your hand. You can find the raise the Zoom hand in the reactions icon in your tool Zoom bar, or maybe for some people it's under participants, but see if you can find the raise your hand. The first way to ask a question is to ask a verbal question by raising your Zoom hand, and you'll be called upon. A second way is to type in a written question in the chat, and Christine Zevin has volunteered to read the chat questions for the mayor candidates. The third way is past, to ask a question in advance, but quite a few people did send questions, so Christine's going to manage those too. When you make your verbal question now, right to the point, 30 seconds or less, one sentence. We don't want it to drag on and on. You don't have to explain all the context to ask your question. These candidates for mayor are really sharp. They will know exactly what you mean when you ask your question. If you've asked one question by raising your Zoom hand, please wait to ask your second question because we want as many people as possible to get their questions asked. Please refrain, this is a little trick, please refrain from using the line, well, I have two questions, which is common in these kinds of things. So if you don't mind, refrain from that, ask only one question at a time. We mentioned that its session is being recorded. So those are the guidelines for us. Julie Murray has volunteered to kind of set the purpose and vision before we launch this in a minute or two. Julie, would you share your vision of why we're doing this?
Yes, we are so excited to be hosting this evening's gathering with the 6 mayoral candidates. We have planned this to be an exciting encounter with these men who want to be the next leader of our beloved city. We're especially interested actually in meeting you all as real people and in experiencing your personal vision, your leadership style and qualities. And we want to really understand what inspires and motivates you candidates and what you hope to bring in terms of what inspirational qualities you believe will make you a great mayor of Cincinnati.
Let that sink in. This is a deeper purpose as well as an important leadership. Thank you, Julie, so much. Now let's begin with the candidates sharing for 90 seconds, a personal sharing, any way that you want, of course. Antoinette, who is our first candidate to share?
Our first candidate is AFTAB Puraval.
Antoinette, thank you so much. Richard, thank you so much. Bold New Democracy, Westside Dems, all of the organizations. It's so great to be here. Richard, I remember when we met in your living room, but the organization has certainly grown and the impact is incredible. Thanks to everyone tuning in on Zoom and out in the digital world. The format of these conversations is a reminder of where we still are with this pandemic. And you ask about what has inspired me. That's a big part of what has inspired me. But what really inspires me is my wife and my family. For a year now, every single day, she's gotten up, Whitney, my wife, said goodbye to our 18-month-old son, Bodie, and she's gone to the front lines of this pandemic. She's a doctor at a local hospital, and she treats COVID patients every day. For my family and for families all across our city, it's just been a really challenging and unfortunately historic year. Historic because of COVID, because of the corruption in City Hall, and the unprecedented economic downturn. I mean, I think we've got to be honest, guys. Our city is in a tough spot right now, but I'm optimistic about the future because that's exactly when Cincinnati rises, when the deck is stacked against us. And right now, we need strong leadership in the mayor's office to come out swinging after COVID and accomplish what I know that we are capable of. I'm running for mayor to lift up all of Cincinnati. I'm running to rebuild our economy after COVID, to make sure prosperity is shared in every corner of our city. This is a special place and our future is bright, but the next decade is critical. It's critical to our city's future. We have to capture the momentum that we have, but we also have to be honest and say that the 10 years that we've had of success has not been felt in all 52 neighborhoods. It's not enough to just grow. We have to grow equitably by prioritizing affordable housing and racial justice. That's what I'll do if I'm elected mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. After good timing. Antoinette, next.
Next is Gavi Begtrip.
Thank you. It's good to be back, everybody. Good to see everyone here. I'm really excited about running for office and the future of what we can do. My experience is a little different. I'm not a career politician. I haven't been running. I'm not using this as something to just launch into the next thing. I'm running because I believe in a better Cincinnati. I've got 3 young kids, and this last year, anyone with kids knows that managing them through the public school closures and 3 different schedules and on and off has been really hard. I'm also a small business owner, and running businesses in the last year has been really hard. The future of recovery for the city runs through small businesses. When small businesses close, we lose jobs in our neighborhoods, and it hurts. And I understand that because I've run these things. And I also understand it takes really good policy to make these things work. Unfortunately, policy and solving problems isn't something City Hall does very well. We've seen time and time again, City Hall refuse to act until there's absolute tragedy. We saw it 20 years ago. We see inaction on affordable housing that led to a charter amendment, which is flawed but necessary because nobody in City Hall wants to solve a problem that they all pat themselves on the back and talk about. I saw it firsthand. I built the Donald and Marion Spencer Center, which is a public school in Walnut Hills. It serves 350 kids. It's a majority minority school, 40% free and reduced lunch. It looks like our city. And it's a great example of what we can do when we break down barriers and serve. But when we need a crosswalk for 3 years, City Hall ignored us until 8 kids got hit by cars. And I just believe
Pardon me, Gavi. Maria's, I didn't hear, you have to unmute, Marie. Try it again. Well, it's trying to get there. Sorry to interrupt, Gavi, but the 90 minutes, or the 90 minutes, didn't it seem like it was just seconds? But it was 90 seconds is up. And Antoinette, who is next?
Next is Raphael Prophet.
Let me unmute. So good evening. Certainly happy to be with the Bold New Democracy. Of course, I love the word audacious. I think that sounds a little right. Yeah. But anyway, happy to be here. I remember I was introduced to you folks when we were pushing issue 15 forward 2-3 years ago. So love the work that you do. I'm a lifelong Cincinnatian, born, raised, educated, and served here. And I'm just I just want to provide the opportunity for that I had for our collective future. I just see, especially in the aftermath of COVID and the social movement with the killings of Floyd and Taylor, that we have to been moved by that. I certainly was. At this time when I retired from the fire department, I didn't think that I would be running for mayor right now, but that's why I'm doing it, is for our collective future. And I believe that I'm well positioned, well skilled, and I have the vision to move us to that bold new future that you talk about. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, Antoinette.
Next is David Mann.
Good evening. Thank you, Richard, and thank all of you for bringing us together. And the tone that you've set is very nice. We've been doing a lot of forums together, and some of them have a formal air to them, and this doesn't. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about myself. I grew up in Northern Kentucky. The Navy sent me to Harvard College. I majored in biochemistry because I was going to be a doctor. I then spent 4 years in the Navy, and naturally I went to law school. And I came back to Cincinnati and inspired by President Kennedy's challenge to all of us, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Jack Gilligan was running for the Senate. I went down to Senate headquarters and said, hey, I just got to Harvard Law School. I'd like to do some research for the candidate. And they said, well, we really appreciate that. We have some signs we'd like you to put up. And I said, wait a minute, you don't understand. I can really make a contribution. I was kind of full of myself. And he said, we understand. I go put some signs up. And I did. And 2 years later, when Jack ran for governor, I was in charge of all the signs in Hamilton County. So that is how my career began. But my inspiration really came from President Kennedy. I've had the privilege of serving this community for many years at City Hall, in Congress, as mayor. And I think we can be proud of what has happened in the last 8 years. I agree that the last year has been very challenging. Fortunately, we've been able to do a lot of things that help people. The federal government has made that possible with some grants and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Antoinette.
Yes, and our final speaker for this piece is Senator Cecil Thomas.
Well, thank you all for having me. Why am I running for mayor? I firmly believe that each one teaches one. I believe that if you give someone a fish, he'll eat for a day, but if you teach him to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. I recognize that we have to begin to address the serious issues are facing our city, and it starts with poverty. When you look at the impact of poverty on our city, when you look at crime and housing and education and all these other areas, it's all rooted in this whole issue of poverty. So I'm running to start looking at building our city from the ground up instead of the top down. I've never believed in trickle-down economics. I believe that if we educate our young people, if we teach them to fish rather than give them a fish, they will learn and exist for a lifetime in terms of lifting themselves out of these circumstances that we find ourselves in. The Bible says we perish for lack of knowledge. And I looked at the 5,000 kids that did not have access to broadband, high-speed internet. One of my first efforts would be to bring broadband, high-speed internet to our city so that all of our kids will build from that and have an opportunity to learn in the event they find themselves in another pandemic where they have to study from school, from home. So I'm running for those reasons, mainly to lift ourselves out of poverty. I see it banging, but she's not here. I got you. That's why I'm running, folks.
Thank you so much. Yeah, our experiment with the chime, somehow Marie strikes it, but it doesn't sound. So I think it's the power of each of your voices that it kind of blocks out those kinds of things. And Gabi, someone mentioned that maybe yours wasn't a full 90 seconds. I apologize.
Didn't feel like it, but I'll make up for it later.
Good. Thank you. I apologize if that was not accurate. Let's move now to questions and answers. Please put your Zoom hands up in the corner there and make your questions to the point. And Marie, maybe he'll just have to speak up rather than the chime if it's not working. I'll try to be alert to you as well. So thank you, Faith, for volunteering to ask the first question to the candidates for mayor.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I wanted to know, we're very lucky that we have currently a 100 on the Human Rights Campaign Municipality Equality Index. However, we still have a way to go for the LGBTQ community. And I wanted to know what plans you have in place to directly address the LGBT community, and if you would support the implementation of single stall restrooms in all places of public accommodation.
Thank you, Faith. And Antoinette, what's the order this time?
Yes, our first speaker is Cecil Thomas.
Well, thank you. When I was the head of the Human Relations Commission, the first thing I did in addressing an issue, that was an ordinance passed back in, I believe it was 1993 or 3, when it affected the LGBT community. And then I became the head of the commission in 2000. And as a result of that, I immediately began to tear that that ordinance down, and eventually we were able to repeal that ordinance that was impacting the LGBT community in a negative way. My philosophy is this: we are all one people. We are all one, and what bonds us together is our love for each other. And what that basically says is that the LGBT community is no different than me or anybody else, and I'm not going to pass any laws that are going to discriminate against them for whatever reason. That's just absurd. And I've been fighting for legislations since I was on city council. Okay, thank you. Sorry about
Pardon
that.
me. Yes, 1 minute. Thank you for being the first under the 1 minute, you know, to accomplish one's whole life in a minute. But our encouragement is go right to the heart of the matter. You did it well, Cecil. Thanks for being the first one under that short time, but be focused right from your heart. Next, Antoinette, is?
Second is David Mann.
Well, thank you for recognizing the progress that we have made in the last 8 years, and the fact that we are recognized nationally with a score of 100. And I've supported each of those initiatives, and I will expect to continue to support initiatives. We'll look at them with care. And the question you ask, I would expect to support that. I would want to know some of the implementing details. But sure, we have to be a city that's known as welcoming everybody. I'm proud to have a son who is gay, and when he came out when he was 17, he transformed my family's understanding of the issues that LGBT people face, and I am a strong advocate at this point.
Thank you. Antoinette, we'll just kind of name the next one right going forward.
F-Tab.
Faye, thank you so much for the question. You know, I'm so encouraged by all the progress that we've made, but we have so much more work to do at the federal, at the state, and at the local level. In addition to the advocacy that I have done on behalf of HRC, chairing the most recent HRC dinner with some of my best friends, we've also made a difference here in the clerk's office. And we did that by making it illegal in the clerk's office to discipline or fire employees based on who they love. A very simple concept, but until we had done that, that was not the case in the clerk's office and was not the case in most of the offices in Hamilton County. And Faith, it's important to know that we took action on that issue well before the most recent Supreme Court decision codifying LGBTQA as a protected class in our country. That's the kind of leadership that we continue to need to have in Cincinnati, because as we know, the most vulnerable among us are often the target. Sorry to keep going. Thanks, Faith.
Okay. We want a few extra words is fine when you're doing this. I mean, we're rigid, but we're not totally rigid. Next, Antoinette.
Yes, next is Raphael Prophet. And you need to
muted, Raphael?
Unmute.
Thank you. So my style of leadership is based on core values, right? And so I was brought up in a very diverse family. I served many years in the fire department, as well in the military, as male-dominated structures. I was overseas in a combat zone in 2011 when the United States military repealed "Don't Ask, Don't Tell," and one day we went from not acknowledging the LGBTQ community to soldiers being able to come out, and we did that transition because of the military's value system, and that's what we have to be about as a city. That we have to be the values to do what's right, what's just, and what's fair. And I'm willing to listen to get at a more fair and just city.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final respondee to this question is Gavi Begtrup.
This issue is quite personal to me. It's not, scores are one thing, but we've got to just keep working to do what's right. A few weeks ago, my daughter's best friend, who's transgender, attempted suicide. And unfortunately, that's way too common. And in this country right now, it's easier to get an AR-15 than it is to get an appointment with a psychiatrist. And if we want to change the future, we need to invest in kids. And one of the things I'd love to see is more collaboration between the Cincinnati Health Department and our schools to provide more mental health services. I think, kids, the next generation is different. The next generation is cool. We just got to make sure that we keep them healthy.
Terrific. Thank you. Candidates, you're doing so well with the 1 minute. You really are getting to the heart of the answer, which is encouraging for us. Christine, would you now bring up one of the questions that were emailed into us as the next question?
Okay. One of the questions that we have from one of the clubs is, can you please share a personal quality that makes you an outstanding leader?
And our first responder is Gavi Begtrip.
I think one of my qualities that really fit for a leader is I'm not afraid to be wrong, but I don't like to stay wrong. I'm a pretty smart guy and I have a lot of good ideas, but I know almost nothing in the grand scheme of things. And so I always surround myself with smart people who actually work on the issues and think about the issues. And I'm swayable. And I always want to end up on the right side of things, even if I come in not knowing it in the first place. And I think to lead, you have to lead with integrity and honesty, but also with openness to new ideas and different approaches.
Thank you. FTAB is next.
Thanks, Antoinette. I was initially going to say I'm tall if I had to go first, so I can reach high things, but I'm going to give a more thoughtful answer. I was the first Democrat elected to the clerk of courts in over 100 years. Nobody wanted to see me in that office when I first got elected. No one in that courthouse wanted to see me there. But the reason why I've been able to make that office an engine of progressive change, make it relevant to people's lives and evening the playing field of our justice system is because I've been able to bridge the divide between myself and Republican judges. That collaboration, that ability to bring together a diverse coalition of people, that's what we need in City Hall. For the past 8 years, we've seen the division. We've seen the personal attacks. We need a new leader who's going to bring us together, irrespective of political differences, and start us rowing in the same direction. That's what I hope to achieve as mayor.
Thank you. And the next responder is Raphael Prophet.
Courage. And I don't mean the type of courage that takes to run into burning buildings or fighting on the battlefield because you're trained to do that. You react to do that. But, I've come to understand what my purpose in life, and that has solidified my courage, right? To understand, to see things through, even though when everyone around you is blaming things on you, but you have to have the courage to see things through. And that is something that I have come to just embrace. If we're going to really get at these serious issues of disparity that have been revealed from COVID, social movement, these terrible killings, that it's going to take some courage, and you got to have to see it through when all those around you are blaming you for all of the disruption that's going on. So courage, and that's something that has been developed.
Time is up.
Thank
Pardon?
you.
Thank you so much.
And next is David Mann.
I would say three things. Number one, listen. Listen to the employees and your colleagues on council, the employees of the city, and more importantly, listening to the citizens of this community. I learned so much and received such wisdom in the most surprising corners of this city. Often folks that don't have much education, who are not thought of perhaps of having great insights, have tremendous insights. Number one. Number two, show respect for those that you serve, whether they're city employees or whether they're citizens. In my experience, those who work for us really do want a good job, do a good job, make it clear that you anticipate that'll happen and it will happen. And finally, the willingness to make a decision. Sometimes the worst thing is not to be willing to make a decision. You've got to make a decision, right or wrong, you make a decision and move on.
Thank you, David.
Yes, and our next respondent is Cecil Thomas.
Thank you. I guess first I would say that the most important aspect that I have is the ability to recognize inequalities and recognizing that treating people the way you would want to be treated if you ever find yourself in a circumstance. So when you do that, it gives you that discerning spirit and that caring heart that recognizes, well, if this person's circumstance is this, how can I help that person to change his circumstance, to build his life, to make it a quality of life that we all cherish so much. Be open to compromise. If you don't ever lock yourself in, always be open to compromise. Value everyone else's opinion. I do that all the time up at the State House. And David stole one of my characteristics. Learn to listen, speak little and listen a lot. And you will be amazed at what you hear from other people. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's go to a new question. Christine, this is something that you've picked out of the chat.
Yes, I did. And I'm incorporating actually, and to let everybody know, if we have dual questions from the chat and the questions people sent in, I'm incorporating them. So the chat question is, if you don't, I completely lost it. 20 years ago, Timothy Thomas, an unarmed man, was shot and killed by police. This is still happening today. What will you do to make this stop? And what will you do with guns for gun safety in Cincinnati?
Yes, and the first respondent is Gabi Begtrup.
Well, you hit another personal issue. So two things. One is the collaborative agreement is paramount. We once led the country in police reform, and we then abandoned it because we didn't have to do it anymore. And that's how City Hall works, is when we're not forced to do something, we do nothing. We need to recommit to the collaborative agreement. There's still recommendations we need to make. We need to fully fund the Citizen Complaint Authority, something that City Hall doesn't do, so we have a big backlog. And we need to go beyond that. I've just announced out of the stimulus money, I'd like to create $1 million fund for creative ideas out of the community to improve police community relations. I want Cincinnati to be in the New York Times for having the most progressive police in the country, most progressive policing in the country, not because we have the most corrupt City Hall. On guns, we have to invest in people. When you invest in kids, when you give them opportunities, when you give them pathways to work and everything like that, that's the greatest thing a mayor can do. I've been personally affected by gun violence. That's a much longer story, but there's so much really around people. The legislation has to happen at Congress, frankly.
Thank you, Gabi.
Thank you. And David Mann is next.
Now, twice in my career, I have voted successfully to ban handguns, the Brady bill in Cincinnati and in Congress, and to ban assault rifles in Cincinnati and in Congress. Subsequently, the Supreme Court of the state decided that gun regulation was a matter of statewide concern, and therefore home rule cities couldn't do it. And recently, the Supreme Court threw out our recent legislation dealing with modifications that we thought ought to come under, be exempt from that rule. And then the legislation in Congress that I had the privilege to vote for had a 10-year expiration date. And since then, of course, the NRA has gotten only stronger and stronger. And thank God we have a president who understands that at some point it's got to end. But if it doesn't, until there's support for, let's say, a constitutional amendment that qualifies and makes the Second Amendment reasonable, or we dramatically change the Supreme Court.
Thank you, David. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Next.
Next is Cecil Thomas.
Thank you. The first thing I would do, and I go back, I can't help but reiterate poverty. Focus on poverty, and then add to that a strong focus on education. Getting our young people educated, getting folks out of poverty, getting jobs, getting workforce development. There's so many young men and young ladies out there who just want the hope of having the ability to get a decent job. So sometimes it takes a little helping hand. If you're out of high school and you didn't finish your high school education, a GED program. So we get them in apprenticeship programs. We work together with the building trades and AFL-CIO labor to work through those apprenticeship programs to get those young folks hired so they can have sustainable, well-paying jobs. The workforce development, we want to make sure that we give our families the opportunities that they deserve living in the city of Cincinnati, the opportunity for hope and employment and everything else.
Thank you, Cecil. And next speaker is Afteb Piraval.
COVID has shown a light on the long-standing racial inequities in our society. And you only need to look at the names: Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and Timothy Thomas. The names change every year, but the color never does. It's Black Americans feeling the brunt of a system that leads to unjust results, and in some instances, the loss of life. So how do we do it? We've got to get back to the fundamentals of the collaborative agreement. And yes, fully funding the Citizen Complaint Authority is a critical piece of that, but also getting back to community policing and getting innovative in our 911 response. Right now, it's only helpful if you're on fire or in mortal danger. We've got to send unarmed emergency responders to deal with mental health issues and addiction issues. But we also, if we're going to talk about gun violence, we have to talk about poverty. They are inextricably linked. As a city, we've got to allocate resources and invest in organizations like the Cincinnati Youth Collaborative to get more youth employed. We've got to look at apprenticeship programs, trade schools, and partner with local colleges to widen access to poverty-stricken communities. Thank you.
Yes.
And Raphael.
Hey, could you repeat the question again? I just want to make
Yes.
sure.
Yes, I can. We're talking about crime as what is the one thing in the city you could do to reduce crime and gun safety laws?
Right. So, one of my priorities is transforming public safety. I know there's preliminary evidence that we have a lot of work that we can do in transforming our safety forces that get at these social ills that face us. Some of the preliminary evidence also suggests most of the incidents that the safety folks make are health related. And so, doing the analytics and how we possibly can restructure our safety forces is going to help reduce that. When you're talking about gun safety, we have to really, look at that because firstly, there's been laws in place that have adversely affected people of color, specifically African Americans in our city, and that just leads to a legacy of just problems, not only in terms of employment, but other issues. And so, if we're going to, get at gun safety, it has to be done smartly. As we transform public safety, we can integrate all of those things.
Thank you, Raphael. Good timing. Yes, and that's all five. Is that right, Internet?
Correct.
Good. So in 54 years of marriage, I've learned to really pay attention to my wife and what she wants to say and ask questions. So Antoinette, for a live question, you're next.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate your discussions around poverty. And as we all know, issue 3, which will be on the ballot in the primary election and is a really hot topic right now. Proponents, opponents, much discussion about it. My question is, do you have a plan to solve affordable housing in Cincinnati? And if so, would you give 1 or 2 specific details from your plan? And we'll begin with Raphael Prophet.
So I do support issue 3. Now, it's not perfect, right, in terms of the language of issue 3, but it is a start to solving a lingering problem that has just had festered for decades, right? And now we're faced with over 28,000 shortage of units that even at $50 million a year, not including, the repairs that it will take for the units are already in good shape, it will take nearly 60 years to meet that shortage, right? And so issue 3 is the best hope in decades to really finally, in a serious way, get at affordable housing, right? When you have housing, costing, over $50,000, but you have the average median income of our city being much lower than that, you have over 50%, and these are African Americans.
Pardon me, Raphael, I'm sorry to be curt here, but I need to stop you and
Thank
go
you. I'm
to the
sorry,
next
I
one.
get carried away on that.
No problem. That shows your passion.
Thank you. And next to speak on do you have a specific, do you have a plan to solve affordable housing in Cincinnati, and give 1 or 2 specific details from your plan? Next is David Mann.
I don't think we can, quote, solve the problem. I think we need to do as much as we can. Number one, to lift people out of poverty. Affordable housing speaks to 2 things: the cost of housing, the cost of rent on the one hand, and income levels on the other. And we should not accept a continuation of low income levels. That's why the city, under the leadership of Mayor Cranley, and with my involvement, was very happy to support and now is funding the Childhood Poverty Collaborative, which has been transmuted or transcended to Project Lift, which is still devoted to bringing 10,000 children out of poverty. That's no mean task. Obviously, more jobs, more development also has to happen. We've been doing quite a bit. The fact is, in the last 5 or 6 years, the city's work has produced anywhere between 400 and 600 new units of affordable housing each year. Now, if the challenge is 28,000, it's going to take a while to get there. But the 50 million proposal, with all respect, is not well thought out. We don't have the money in the budget, number one. Number two, an 11-person lay board is going to have autonomy from the city. And
pardon me, David. Sorry to interrupt.
I know decisions that could be not helpful, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. And next is FTAB.
Thank you. I don't support issue 3. I do support affordable housing, and I understand why proponents of issue 3 are so frustrated, because I see the effects of the city not having a comprehensive affordable housing plan. I see it every day in eviction court. Single mothers in the middle of a pandemic being evicted, rendered homeless, when public health officials are telling you to stay in your home if you don't have a home. That's a problem for the tenant, and it's a problem for you, and it's a problem for me. So yes, my plan involves using city dollars to leverage private dollars to fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, getting serious about tenants' rights, because the inequities in eviction court are outrageous. 90% of landlords are represented by a tenant. 90% of tenants are representing themselves. We need a housing court to balance those equities. And finally, we've got to review and reform our tax abatement process. Right now, massive homes in Mount Lookout are being torn down. 5 are going in its place. They're all 15 years abated. Instead of relying on LEED certification, we've got to start looking at location to make that more equitable.
Thank you, FTAB, very much.
And next is Gavi Bagtrip.
Yeah, here's how I think about affordable housing. As somebody who's built a school and run businesses, when families have access to affordable housing, their kids have a more stable home. They do better in school, which means they do better in the workplace, which means I can hire them and they can break out of poverty, right? So affordable housing has to happen, and City Hall, frankly, hasn't done it. We can take money from the stimulus. We can catalyze private and philanthropic investment, just like we did with the preschool promise. We have to look at zoning. Right now, we make it really, really hard to have high density housing. And without that, you can't have enough low income housing. We can solve this problem, but you got to be thinking big. Another thing, abatements artificially inflate real estate prices. They raise the cost of living in Cincinnati. We have to do a lot for tenants. We have to be able to maintain rents. We also need to use abatements to keep people from getting pushed out of their home because their taxes keep going up. We give more money to millionaires than we do to poor people, which is exactly what wasn't supposed to happen with these abatements. I'll talk more about how we raise wages later on. but I see the bell, even though I can't hear it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, and now to Cecil Thomas.
Thank you. I guess the first thing I'd like to say is there's an organization, LISC. That's a community building organization. They're a national organization. And they were given a grant by the foundation, Greater Cincinnati Foundation, to do a study to determine affordable housing. That study was done in 2018. When I talked to them as to what was the extent of that study as it relates to the city, and it's sitting on somebody's shelf, not getting any implementation. So my first step would be to take the dust off that study and implement the recommendations of LISC. Also, we look at, we have a significant amount of vacant lots in our city where there's residential housing, single family, we want to infill that with additional single family homes. Where there's multifamily dwellings, we want to infill that area with multifamily units. Then we can begin to have a sustainable source of revenue that we can begin a pathway to the problem for the next 20 years, as long as we got the sustainable source coming in. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Cecil.
Thank you. Now, part of our test for you candidates, or our challenge, is how do you handle awkward situations? You know, you got to do that all the time. So here is one that we'd like to see how you manage this. Imagine that you're at a party, you know, and you have your drink in your hand, and all of a sudden, through circumstances, you end up in a circle of 5 men, and you all 5, you look around, hey, we're the 5 candidates that are running for mayor. Isn't that interesting? Here we are in the circle. 5 of us are here, and now it's your chance to talk together, you know, or share, ask questions or whatever. So I'm not going to facilitate that. There won't be any questions or answers. This is completely up to the 5 of you to manage the next 5 minutes, and go for it. It's yours.
Richard, you've clearly never run for office, because all running for office is a series of awkward interactions. So thank you so much for giving us another opportunity. I'll lead us off. Captain Prophet, really inspired by your story. What inspired you to join the service?
You know, and I think, thanks for the question. I actually joined, right, get a little disciplined, but to pay for college. The Ohio National Guard was offering tuition assistance, 6 years for a college degree. I had no idea I would be getting a lifetime of learning after 32 years of staying, but that's what inspired me.
That's awesome. And then did you go straight into the fire station after that, fire service?
Yeah, well, that's where I was going to be. I was going to be a cop. Actually, Chief Isaacs and I were in the same guard unit together, and I signed up to take the cop test. And when I was down there, they said, "Hey, firefighters looking for African Americans." That's like, yeah, sure, I'll sign up. But I walked out of there like, "You're crazy. You run out of burning buildings, right?" But anyway.
So similar to you, Raphael, we've talked about this. The Navy sent me to college, and then I had to get 4 years back, and I thought that the best part of that was going to be the tuition payments in college. But actually, in terms of my life and in terms of my experiences, the 4 years in the Navy were far more important. It broadened my experience in a way that was very helpful, very needed. I happened to be a part of the Cuban Missile Crisis, but I even now think about the young sailors who I was responsible for. I think of my captain, who I thought was older than sin, and he was 10 years older than I, but it was a wonderful experience. So we were lucky.
But David, I got to ask you, man, look, you and I are probably the oldest in this group. And
not the youngest.
Whatever, what we doing? But wait a minute, Raphael, I'm 68. How old are you?
I'm 61.
Oh, see, yeah. So, David, tell me your secret, man. I cannot grow any hair on my head.
Well, I tell you, my dear wife of 57 years is sitting over here. Now, I tell her that the first time I saw white hair was the day after we were married, but I have kept all my hair all those years, and she's a big part of it.
And my goodness, I had to give you a thumbs up on that, buddy.
Bobby, I guess the younger people should jump in here. I'm a big fan of Zoom backgrounds. Is that your family over your right shoulder there?
No, actually, this is stock footage. I found this at TJ Maxx. Yeah, no. This is, sorry. Yeah, my way of dealing with being awkward is just be even more awkward. So, yeah, so these are my kids. The problem with getting photos is you spend like $100 getting this thing, and then like a month later, they don't look like that anymore.
Right.
Like my daughter's now bigger than everyone else. So,
Well,
but I have one question before we go on, because after I gotta ask, so you always win the Zoom background. Okay, you've got the like pro. I keep looking to see like whether it's a printout or whether it's a real. I want to see you pull a book off the shelf.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Hey, turn around after that.
It's a magic trick. Ready?
Get your butt out there.
If that whole thing opens up and there's like a layer behind it,
He's touching them.
you
Oh,
know,
Here we go.
Okay, we got one. All right,
Here we go.
all right.
Sorry, that took longer than. Here we go. Bobby Kennedy. I'm pandering to the group.
Yeah.
David
Yeah,
Mann
good.
had his Kennedy story. This is an incredible biography of Bobby Kennedy. Highly, highly recommend. I don't know if we're at 5 minutes, but Cecil, Raphael suggested he could be a police officer. Do you think he could have cut it?
No, he could not have cut it. They do not have it. I'm just telling you. They want to be. They want to be cops. You know.
Wow.
Shots fired there, Prophet.
All they do is sit it.
We let them. Everybody knows when they call 911 who they really like, right?
all they do is
we'll let them have that.
Cecil. They don't make calendars of cops, right? It's all firefighters.
yeah, but see, all they do is eat and sleep. Every now and then they'll get up, and then you see them at Kroger's getting all the food out of Kroger's and coming back and cooking it and all that stuff while we're fighting crime.
Yeah.
Marie's trying to shut us off, but I think we're going to go all night. I'm going to go grab a beer. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Bring me one too. Hey, Gabby, bring me a beer too.
Yeah, you guys are terrific.
So I did want to ask everybody on the record, does your campaign have an official beer?
Oh yeah. Corona with a lime. That's right.
Corona. That's a good answer. Yeah, that's a good answer.
What is yours, Gabi?
It's a Rheingeist Truth, because the truth always wins.
Cool. Thank you. You guys did great. I really handled it, and it was fun and serious and interested in each other. I mean, that's the collaboration and cooperation that we really need. Let's return now to, we have another segment. We have about 30 minutes left. This was kind of it was a nice comic break, as well as learning about you each individually in your own way of handling it. Christine, would you share with us a question that was sent to us through email?
We have a few questions on if you receive the federal aid, of how you would have allocated the stimulus money, and with regard to, would you use it for city pension setup city pension systems up to date, and also would you use any of that money for affordable housing?
This is going to be a challenge in 1 minute to to go for that, but go to the heart of the matter. Where's the feeling? Where's the spirit, Antoinette?
And the lucky winner is Gavi Bag Trip to begin.
Yeah, so this is an absolute opportunity to change the future of the city. Every dollar should be spent to catalyze more investment. I want to create a skills bank so that we can pay for people to get to go to school, not just pay for school, but pay for everything that supports them. You can make that evergreen with a few $1 million. You can actually make that last forever so that we can help people bring themselves out of poverty. I want to create investment for minority seed fund for small businesses. Again, catalyzing private investment. I do want to spend it on affordable housing, but as I said, by bringing more and more money to the table. The big opportunity with money like this is not to blow it all. You know, we've seen recommendations to spend it all in 6 months before the election, right? What we need is community engagement. I want to see participatory budgeting for 1% of it to get $3 million and open it up to the community and really get democratic action where people have input and full engagement in where this money goes. I just think every dollar has to catalyze a new progressive Cincinnati.
Thank you, Gavi.
Thank you, Gabi. And next is AFTAB.
Yeah, first and foremost, we need more community engagement in this 290 million transformational opportunity for not just our city, but our region. Our current city hall has just not engaged enough with the community on figuring out what our priorities should be. If I'm lucky enough to be mayor, my priorities would be number one, economic recovery after COVID. Number two, affordable housing. Number three, public safety and basic services. On economic recovery, we have all struggled, but if you're Black and brown, the struggle has been disproportionate. Black-owned businesses have shuttered at a greater rate and have not had access to PPP loans like their other white counterparts. So we've got to have direct investments into our Black-owned businesses to create that Black wealth and support the African-American Chamber, the Minority Business Accelerator, and the Urban League. Second, on public safety, we've got to make sure, as I mentioned earlier, to fund the collaborative agreement and specifically the Citizen Complaint Authority. We've got to put some of that money in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to leverage more private dollars to fully fund it. And then finally, I launched my campaign in February when "plow the damn streets" sounded like a pretty good tagline. We've got to get back to prioritizing basic services to make sure that our city runs efficiently.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
FTEB. Next is Cecil Thomas.
Thank you. My first and foremost would be to stabilize the city post-COVID. You want to make sure all of your basic services are stabilized. You want to make sure your small businesses are stabilized. You want to make sure that you're giving full attention to all of those areas that maybe in some semblance of problematic as a result of the COVID crisis. When you want to look at affordable housing, you want to make sure that whatever dollars you are spending, that you are laser focused your approach. Yes, absolutely, we will use some of those dollars to address affordable housing, but I'm not going to just pick a number out of the sky. I want to make sure we know exactly what the pathway to do that is. We also want to make sure that we continue to look at the whole issue of poverty. When you've got this much money, you want to make sure that you do it from the ground up now, making sure that we have opportunities to address that serious problem that carries the weight of all of the other problems.
Thank you, Cecil.
Thank you.
Approach. Thank you.
And next is Raphael Prophet.
Yeah, so we're talking about the 290 mil rescue money, right? Right. So I would right off the top, I would take 50 mil and meet the first year requirement of issue 3, which will give the new leadership, which plans to be me, an opportunity to really determine how we're going to have that sustained funding for the 50 million it will require in the succeeding years. Then I will, put it towards essential services. I know that there's some needs to put on some police classes, some fire classes, and I'm sure that there's other essential services that need to be shored up. And then I would have public hearings to determine the suffering that has gone on in the event of COVID-19, especially small businesses and those people who work for them. And I think that's where the lion's share of that money should go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. And final respondent, David.
Well, thank you. As you know, I'm chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, and I'm spending almost all my spare time just now dealing with this challenge. It's an opportunity, but if we don't act thoughtfully and don't act carefully, we will have lost it. At 1 o'clock on Monday, the first public hearing takes place, and the following Monday at 1 o'clock, the second public hearing takes place. So we are making it as easy as possible for as many people to weigh in on appropriate uses of the money as possible. My office has also created an online survey that allows people to answer some basic questions and also ask them to dream a bit about 10% of the money. $291 million. If you could control $29 million and think about one thing that could be transformational, what would it be? So we've gotten some interesting responses, and we're going to weigh into those also starting this coming week. Just so you know, half the money will be available to us in May. The other half will be available a year from now. The money has to.
Thank you, David. Sorry to be crude here by interrupting you. Christine, we have how about a question? really to the point question from the chat.
Okay, on greenhouse and global warming. As mayor, how would you support policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and make our city more resilient to climate impact?
And the first,
Did you get that in?
oh, sorry. Do you need the question repeated, panel? Okay. First respondent is Raphael Prophet.
Yeah, so I have a little background. So I have a master's degree in urban sustainability and resilience. So I totally get the effects of global warming and the need for a lot more sustainable living. We as humans have encroached upon our planet. And so, you know, the city has a green plan. You know, I remember reviewing it, you know, a few years ago. I'll be quite honest, don't know the metrics, how well we have done at achieving those goals that we set for each other. And I don't know if they were even, you know, good goals or they were just, you know, tacit. So first of all, we would look at what are best practices as a city that we can do, because that's how you're probably going to change this whole, you know, issue of global warming. It's probably going to happen from the bottom up. Cities will lead the world.
Thank you, Raphael. And next is David Mann.
Raphael, the Green Plan was updated in 2018. I chaired the group of citizens that spent several months reviewing it and developing new goals, which were embraced and approved by the City Council. And we're doing a lot of them already. We have a goal of for the city to have a neutral carbon footprint by 2035, which is very ambitious. Urban agriculture is something that is prioritized in the plan, and that's something that separately I've initiated some legislation that facilitates urban agriculture. As you may know, the city is in the process of generating all its electrical needs from solar panels that are located in rural Ohio. It's underway now. It's going to be an amazing accomplishment, and we're going to be unique around the country. So, and the plan also calls out the reality that as climate does change and as more severe storms take place, these 100-year floods are going to occur pretty often, as we've seen.
Yes, thank you, David.
Thank you.
And next is FTEB.
You know, the world came together just a few years ago and created the incredible Paris Climate Accords. And then unfortunately, Donald Trump and our leaders in Washington, D.C. walked away from the world. The good news is leaders in municipalities across this country, including right here in Cincinnati, picked up the ball and fulfilled the obligations of the United States through leadership from cities. That's what we need to continue to do here in Cincinnati. I agree. We've made incredible progress over the last 8 years on this issue, from the commitment, the bold commitment to going zero emissions by 2035, to relying on solar panels for our electricity. But we need a mayor to continue to push the envelope. And the next big frontier on this fight is going to be electric vehicles and changing out our fleet to also be zero emission. GM just announced in the next 10 years, they're only going to be selling electrical vehicles. We need that same commitment here in Cincinnati to continue to fight to achieve that bold 2035
Thank
goal.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, FTEB. And now Gavi.
You know, I've worked on energy environment issues for well over a decade. When I was the policy advisor for Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, we wrote and passed the legislation, the Solar Technology Roadmap Act, that made affordable solar technology possible. We wrote bipartisan legislation that became law that transformed the $20 billion budget for the Department of Defense, the world's largest energy consumer and largest greenhouse gas emitter, and transformed the way they consume energy. So I've been working on this for a long time. I also happen to be a PhD physicist, so I actually have built solar cells. But here in Cincinnati, in addition to all the things we're doing, what we really can do is start changing a city that 50 years ago, 60 years ago, was torn asunder at the expense of Black community and became a car-first city. We need to turn into a city that's multimodal transportation, that prioritizes buses and bikes and sidewalks over cars. That's the biggest thing we can do. Yes, green energy. Yes, solar panels. Yes, we need to invest in changing our buildings so they're more energy efficient. I've written all those policies.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Multimodal
Gabi.
transportation.
Thank you. And now Cecil.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, back when I was on council, I was a very strong proponent of a green Cincinnati. And the Green Cincinnati plan is already in place. It's just a matter of having the political will to implement that plan. I would highly focus on making sure that that plan is implemented, that the Director of Environment and Sustainability for the City of Cincinnati, I would say, what do you need to make sure your plan is moving forward on a sustainable course? And make sure that he has the resources to get that done. It would have, because we already have it makes no sense to reinvent the wheel. Let's just implement the plan that is already in place, which addresses a number of areas related to our climate, our energy, our food, our green economy, mobility, when we're talking about bikes and walking trails, and recycling. So when you do that, now you're on the course to address the problem.
Thank you, Cecil.
Political will to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes.
Are we complete with that group, that round?
Yes.
Terrific. Yes, now let's go to a personal question. Jim Shank, the wonderful founder of Imago and the Enright Eco Village, has a question for the mayor candidates. And you need to unmute, Jim.
How should the city respond to the rights of community rights of nature, where the state is preempting the city's rights? For example, denying the city right to end the use of single-use plastic in the city.
Thank you, Jim. And Raphael, will you begin?
Yeah, thanks.
You get him, Raphael.
Well, yeah, Jim, I'm not a lawyer, right? So, because it sounds like a whole lot of, sort of legal challenges, right? That, in terms of city home rule, being able to make that determination. I just can't speak intelligently on that, Jim. I don't know how do you do that? How do you challenge that? So, but certainly, I would definitely, I would hire a professional city manager that has the skill set to be able to, pull people together. Right? The solicitor's office, I don't know, right? When we put something forth like that, and then basically the state tells us we can't do it, right? I don't know the answer, so I just can't make it up.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Cecil.
Well, it's quite simple. The home rule is under attack at the state level. It's just so perfectly clear that that's going on. A city should have a right to govern itself, especially when it comes to issues that they feel are best for that city. The recycling issue, I should say, using the plastic bags and things of that nature. I've debated that on the floor, saying, wait a minute. A city should be able to do exactly what they choose to in that respect. But there are members on the other side of the aisle who have chose to deregulate in a number of areas, especially when it comes to environmental issues, simply because of the financial aspects to those who have an interest in it. I'm pushing to control guns in your city. Well, we can't get that through. So it's a situation that is going to take the uprising of the people to really either vote them out of office or a referendum to take back control of our communities and our cities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cecil. And Gavi.
Yeah, the way we're going to solve this is by taking back the State House. So look, we're going to get new districts. My campaign is running the most grassroots campaign in Cincinnati history, and we're building an infrastructure to make sure that we don't just get me elected, but that after I win this mayor's race, I look forward to working to help get these young men elected back into other offices so that we have Democrats at every level. But the other way we can solve it, is pulling FDR. Let's just hammer it. You know, FDR did things and the court struck it down and he did it again. And if you care enough about it, you just keep fighting. So let's go win Democratic offices at every level. Let's take over the entire Southwest of Ohio, and then let's take that Democratic movement across the state. That's how we're going to change it.
Thank you, Gabi. Next is AFTAB.
Bold New Democracy, we have been working hard to create a progressive infrastructure for the past several cycles. And the really good news is that we have succeeded. We've got equal footing at the state Supreme Court because of your activism, because of our activism. We've got a majority on the Court of Appeals in the 1st District, and we have a majority in the Court of Common Pleas. So my simple answer to you, Jim, on plastic bags, on minimum wage, on a whole host of progressive municipal issues, is we sue. We sue because these legal issues are not black letter law. There is interpretation involved here, and the work that we have done to elect progressive judges, well, it's now time to make sure that these issues that we are passionate about, that we need the backs of our courts on, that we give them an opportunity to avail themselves of what the law is, which is that our cities should be empowered to govern themselves.
Thanks, AFTAB. And David Mann.
I think Cecil is right that home rule is threatened. You know, in the beginning, home rule came into the Ohio Constitution, and it said that municipalities, if they chose to be home rule cities, had all the authority of local government, except a few things of statewide concern. And then over time, and I think it's been mostly judge-made, a series of decisions have said, well, this is a matter of statewide concern. This is a matter of statewide concern. So I think a different group of judges could help, but ultimately the only sure solution would be an Ohio constitutional amendment that dramatically changes some of the details of home rule and makes it clear that the exception ought to be that there's some decision that a municipality can't deal with its own affairs. That's pretty basic to our democracy, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question.
Yes, we're drawing towards the end, but this is an opportunity. This is for your closing sharing. We like saying sharing rather than statement. This is your closing statement or your closing sharing, and it is 90 seconds, a minute and a half, a little longer. But we ask you to weave in, if you wish or can, something about inspiring all the people. Inspiration is a part of leadership. Policy is important, but so is inspiration, of feeling that we're in this together. So any way you can weave that into your closing sharing, and also coalition building. We really try within our work group to build coalitions and what effect that has, what you feel like that in your closing. So you have 90 seconds to close. And Antoinette, who's first?
Yes, David, would you begin?
Yes, with pleasure. You know, the democratic experiment of our country is a very exciting, ever-changing, ever-challenging way of our life. And we're privileged to have it. And I think each of us has the not just the privilege, but the obligation to make sure it grows and is nurtured by us and passed on to yet another group. Inspiration, I think, comes from good ideas. It comes from authenticity. It comes from sincerity. It comes from engaging with the citizens of this community and working together and collaboratively to decide on what the next steps ought to be for Cincinnati. I've had the privilege to serve this community and my country for a long time. And it's my DNA. I don't know whether I have any purpose in life except to be a public official. And that's important to me. And I think I can continue to do a good job for the people of Cincinnati. The next city council, because of term limits, because of other problems, is going to be probably the youngest and least experienced in the history of the city. Only one current a council member who was elected 4 years ago is even eligible for election this year, Greg Landsman. All the others will be, if they're elected, it'll be the first time they've been elected in any office. So some experience, some understanding of how you turn the lights on is very important. And I think I can bring that uniquely amongst the group that is contending for this important, sacred position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. And next is AFTAB.
Thank you to Bold New Democracy. Thank you to all of you for giving us this forum. The party break in the middle was my favorite part. So thanks for that creativity. You know, it's fitting that we're having this debate, these series of debates, the week of the Timothy Thomas murder anniversary, and also the week of the Derek Chauvin trial for the murder of George Floyd. It's been really difficult to watch, particularly the video of Mr. Floyd dying in front of our very eyes, calling out for his mother and pleading that he can't breathe. One of the witnesses who testified just last week was an 18-year-old girl. She was just 17 when the murder happened. She was there. She taped it, and she's traumatized by it. I was at the memorial last night for Timothy Thomas, and our community is still dealing with that trauma. We've got to be eyes wide open about the racial inequities that still exist in our city, because if we are going to grow after COVID, which we absolutely have to do, we have to put racial equity and equity writ large at the center, the North Star of our economic recovery. I think if you run for mayor, you should have a plan. I've put out a comprehensive plan for how we can lift up our city and recover, how we can grow, and how we can prioritize equity. I asked for the opportunity to implement it. Thank you.
Thank you, AFTAB. And Raphael.
Yeah. First, I want to make sure. Hey, Jim, I feel better that no one could answer that question that you had. So I just all right. Anyway, hopefully my time starts right now. I just had to get that in. So, when you talk about inspiration, my inspiration always has come from my mother, who raised my brothers and I primarily. My parents were divorced. My father was always there supporting us, child support, and as a father. But my mother primarily, she was the primary breadwinner, and she was a waitress. Worked for Big Louie's restaurant, 2 locations in the West End and Avondale. That's where my inspirations come from. And COVID and the social movement has shown us that we have a serious, and what a lot of us have known, but I don't know if we really have realized it as much as COVID has showed us, and how we're connected with COVID and the social movement, that the inspiration, that's why I'm doing this. I mean, we got to be about our collective future, and we have people that are suffering, and they are people of color. And one of the basic things we can do is give good, affordable housing. And I think that this issue 3 is a defining moment for this city. And I just hope that we're up for the challenge to finally really get something in place to deal with the affordable housing gap that has been plaguing us for a very long time. And so I want to be the collaborator in chief, right? Yeah. Because we solve problems by coming together.
Thank you, Raphael.
Thank you, Raphael. And Gabby, would you share with us?
Thank you. I'm going to reclaim my 30 seconds from my opening statement. Thank you all for taking this time. Getting the issues is what really matters. I think it's time for a new Cincinnati, right? It's time for a new generation of leadership. I got into this race because I watched so many people announce the same way by saying, you know who I am, it's my turn to be mayor. And they didn't have ideas. They didn't solve the problems. We've watched for decades. Don't talk about this last year. Talk about how we've had systemic racism and inequality in this city for decades, and we haven't worked on it, and we haven't addressed it. Kids get hit by cars, and we don't do anything about it, okay? People get killed by cops. We do something until the courts tell us we don't have to anymore, and then we don't do anything about it. Families get kicked out on the street, and we hear City Hall say, well, we can't solve this problem. It's time for new leadership. It's time for somebody. I've built organizations. I've changed cultures. We're going to change the culture of corruption, the worst corruption we've had in 100 years, into a culture of collaboration. I've brought tens of millions of dollars to the city. I've created jobs. I've worked with Black entrepreneurs to build their companies, to build opportunities. I've built schools. I built an equitable school that brought gifted services to kids all over the city. We need someone who's actually done things, that doesn't just read about it. We need to throw away the platitudes and focus on policy. I've passed real bipartisan legislation and turned into US law. I've written $20 billion budgets and I've cut the checks for my own small business. It's time to lead. I'm inspired by my kids who are going to grow up in this city. I'm inspired by my parents who were in the Army and then spent their entire lives in service. And I'm inspired by Gabby Giffords, who taught me that a politician doesn't just have to be a politician, they have to serve. And I want your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabi. And Cecil, would you round out this discussion for us?
Absolutely. You know, I'm a firm believer in that we're all intertwined, we're all connected. My destiny is tied to everybody's destiny that's listening to this conversation. And so with that being said, I strongly believe that there are people of goodwill all over the region in this area. And those people of goodwill are the people that are going to be inspired as we move forward to make our city, our county, our region a much greater place to live. Simply because I refuse to believe that the people of goodwill, that area is bankrupt. I believe that they're there. I know that they're there simply because when the civil unrest occurred and I was the head of the commission, I called for people all over this region to come in and help me talk to the people in the community, let them vent, and they came. And the people of goodwill far exceed anybody else, and their voices is what's being heard all over this nation as a result of what we saw with the George Floyd incident. It's unconscionable to think that 20 years later from the civil unrest, that we still find ourselves trying to address these problems. So it's going to take bold leadership with a vision, and I have that vision. I'm confident that listening to what I say can carry us through this last, this next 8 years of being the mayor of the city of Cincinnati and changing our city from the ground up. So I'm confident, and I want to thank this organization because everybody on here, your goodwill is well taken and well, I take it well. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Good transition too. For just the final few moments really are to share that Bold New Democracy, citizen-led, values-driven, action strength is certainly moving forward, but it certainly needs support and participation, and even we can grow more and more. Lucy, would you just guide us into a couple pictures of what Bold New Democracy means to you and maybe to the community?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I have to say, the party get together was my favorite part of this evening. I think all of you, if one of you has to be mayor, but you should all be on council and work together because you clearly like each other. But Bold New Democracy, if you have to like us because we work as political activists to build a bold new democracy that is passionate, progressive, and powered by people. Love the alliteration. But I have been involved with the group for about 3 years, and we're not much older than that. We care about participatory democracy. We do our work through a number of subgroups. Some of us plan events like parades when we used to be together before pandemic. We have Meet the Candidates Night, voter registration, postcard writing. Some of us do advocacy like research the For the People Act, virtual testimony at the State House, push for those kind of bills. Some of us research things like the filibuster and voting rights, and we study it and we take action on that. And some of us communicate. We got a lot of letter writers, letters to the editors, op-ed pieces, and social media folks that get the word out. So I will say, if you haven't jumped on our Zoom call, we meet every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. Richard has your email if you're on this Zoom call. And so you will be hearing from us. And please go to our website too if you want more information, boldnewdemocracy.org.
Thank you, Lucy. Candidates, we can't thank you enough. This is so great. I know you've been doing a lot of these forums, and they're not the easiest thing to do, I hope we made it a little more fun or experimental and all. But
it was great, Richard.
You had to fit it into 1 minute answers, but you did it so well, getting to the heart of the matter. Your service is so important for the city. So let us know how we can. We're an activist group, and many other people here are in other groups. Let us know how we can help you, but also reach out and help us if we ask for your help with all. Thank you to the co-hosts that Marty described before. That was really great to get the invitations out and the support out. Thanks for all the participants. I wish we had had more time to really cover all of the questions that you have, but if we have the ones in the chat and we have the written, I'll probably pass that on to the campaign managers for each of the candidates here. We do have a little surprise here in that the next 30 minutes, if you wish, it's completely optional for participants. We're going to very politely guide the candidates to the door and give them a nice little pat on the back and a little farewell gift of a picture of Bobby Kennedy, and as they leave. But the rest of us are invited to stay, not to criticize what's going on or even analyze it over much, but what's a surprise you had from tonight? What's a discovery that you found tonight? Or what was a challenge for you tonight? So that's going to be a sharing time for the participants that have been here. Candidates, thank you again so much. You're so
appreciate you. Yeah, appreciate all that you all do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great having us. See you guys on trail.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, guys. See you soon.
Take care. See ya.
Bye. Thank you so much. Yeah, so if you wish to stay, it'll end by 9, promise to be that. But this is an open conversation. I would like to have the Zoom hands. It just makes it that we still have over 50 here with our call to do that. Or you can put it in the chat. Christine, if you don't mind, if somebody puts something in, we might dip in or just speak up in case somebody does that. Julie, you're first. What's a surprise, a discovery, a challenge for you?
I loved the tone of the whole thing. It was fabulous. And I loved the if you met each other at a party thing. It was terrific. My question is, Marjorie Fox said in response to a suggestion I put in the chat that they can't run for council this year, because I found myself thinking they seem to respect each other, support each other. I'd love to see them, if they don't win for mayor, be on the city council together.
Yeah.
Loved it.
We've got to encourage them. There are no losers. You either win or you learn. And we got to encourage them, if those that don't make the cut of 2, to move forward. Susan, you're next.
Me? I don't think there's any other Susan.
Susan.
That's not true.
Oh, okay. Well, I take that back.
Yeah,
With Susan I was impressed with the people I didn't know and the quality of the field. And now it's making it more difficult for me to make a decision. I was pretty clear before, but I was really impressed.
What is there a particular person or statement or caring quality?
I like the quietness of Raphael and his genuineness. I love Gabi's passion, and I'd sort of written off David Mann, but I mean, he is so knowledgeable that it's like. And I agree that the council is going to be beginners. And Cecil, I mean, my whole issue is about poverty, and if he said it once, he said it 5 times. And if we don't solve that problem, affordable housing is moot. If we have a living wage, there is affordable housing for everybody. We don't need food stamps. I mean, all of this stuff is to raise people out of poverty.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
I just, and I love AFTAB. I mean.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's like they're all, unique in their own way, and I really appreciate where they're coming from. And now
Thank you.
I'm in a dilemma.
Thank you. Yeah, I hear you. Yes. And if you don't know how to put up your Zoom hand, it's under reactions in the in the toolbar, or maybe under participants. And if you can't find it, just wave and we'll get you in.
Mine was under participant.
Yeah, under participants. Yeah. So one of those two tabs in the toolbar. Christine.
I agree with everything Susan said. And if you really do have a passion for somebody, then volunteer and help and remind everybody that we have a primary and it's very important. And the polls were like empty the last few days. So people need to get out there and tell your neighbors and friends that can vote to vote. And I do have a question, Richard, from somebody in the chat, and they want to know why Herman Najoli did not attend tonight. Do you know why he didn't attend?
Yes. When we first started reaching out to the mayor candidates, we sent things to each of them, of course, and their campaign managers. And early on, he responded. Some of them were emails, but then he called me and he said he's an independent. He just didn't know, didn't trust. I don't want to put words into his mouth, but this is my recollection. He just didn't trust the process, and that he just wanted to go his own way. And so that's why I wanted to honor him rather than criticize him. Everybody has their strategy. It doesn't seem like, for me, and my bias, it doesn't seem like a smart strategy is to avoid connecting with people when it's free. And all you have to do is sit at home and pop onto a Zoom call and share your story and your love and your commitment to the city. But that was his choice. Who is next?
There's another chat if you want to know.
Sure, yeah, another chat.
Somebody wrote, I'm not Susan wrote, one of the Susans wrote about that if we're really passionate about this, there should be more forums like this. And that is true, like Westside, like Bold New Democracy, Westside Dems, and Legal Women Voters. We ourselves at the Westside Dems did have the first time all the 6, Herman joined us.
Oh, wow.
Came to the meeting. So I agree with that. And I think Richard, last year, Bold New Democracy, which Westside supported, definitely did a lot of forums, but in person before we weren't allowed for the primary, if I'm not mistaken. And they were really interesting because they, you had Kate Schroeder and Nikki Foster as mentioned. So we could get to meet them. But this is very informative, and I agree we need to do more, and we need to keep each other informed of candidates that are speaking at all the clubs.
Yeah, we're going to do our best and support others as well, other groups as well, of when after the primary, of how to set up ways to get citizen engagement with the council members. There might be so many, but we have to be creative as can be, but that is going on there. Who is next to share? Greg.
Well, I think one thing is that they've heard probably 20 or 50 times by now about affordable housing. So they all have very good answers, and I think that will be top of mind for them. So if nothing else, they've heard repeatedly the same things: affordable housing, help for the poor,
right?
Police training, and police collaborative agreement thing.
Yeah.
So I think that just by having these forums and by having a lot of interaction with a lot of the citizens, they've heard the same things over and over and over again. So that's good.
I wanted to offer or ask them if they would do it, to have town halls, who's ever elected in November, would they make a commitment to do town halls, which this would be a town hall kind of thing, you know? I mean, if COVID, let's say COVID's over, we can do them in person, or they can organize their own. I'm not saying, or can have a variety of different parts of the city. So actually, I think you're right.
I like the Zoom format for the town halls.
Yeah. Who is next? Come on. Yes, Woody. Woody. And you'll need to unmute, Woody. You'll need to unmute.
Just press your space bar, Woody.
There we go. Yeah, I go along with a lot of what Susan had to say earlier. I was really surprised by Prophet, and I'm so glad that he came out in favor of issue 3. The people who are giving $30 million to Football Club Cincinnati to put a spectacular light show down next to Music Hall, and the people who are giving abatements to the people who are building the houses that no one can afford in the city are the same people that are trying to tell us that issue 3 needs to be defeated. And so I'm really stuck on issue 3, and Prophet was the only one that spoke to that.
Yeah.
I was really struck by Gavi's enthusiasm. I want to see him take on anybody at the state level in the GOP, because he'll go toe to toe and he'll break bones.
Yeah. I'm impressed by, thank you, Woody. I'm impressed by all of them. I think we're so fortunate to have the leadership and the multicolor and the first, the first names. How many mayor candidates are a collection of, have a Gavi and an FTAB and a cool Raphael. It took me years to learn to say Raphael rather than Raphael. So that was great. But I was sad of not having women in the group of candidates. It just really, nothing against the 5 men, but I think it would have been so good for at this point in our city's history and election process to have had 5 women, for example, running. And I don't know the reason.
That about Jim Ryan.
Okay, but I want a lot of other people to share too. So that was just a feeling that I had that was there. And I know Christine and Susan, you're ready to share, but I'd like other people to share, like Marjorie.
I have a question.
Like Marjorie, I'll come back to that. Okay. Marjorie Fox.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. We have a very good choices there. Lou Camblin and I have been talking to all these candidates on behalf of American Promise and the constitutional amendment to take big dark money out of politics.
Yes.
And I'm here to tell you 5 of the 6 signed the pledge to support American Promise.
Yeah, way to go.
Yeah, the only one who didn't was Gavi, and we talked with him. I don't know whether it's a matter of communication. We've talked to his aides and so forth. That I know it's not the top priority or anywhere close to the top priority in this race, but the 5 others did sign the pledge. So
thank you for that report. Yes. Who's next? Raise your hand with Zoom if you can, or
Sue Ellen has her hand up.
Yay, Sue Ellen. And to unmute.
So I would like a little more on the report that we just received about American Promise, what that pledge was. But I also want to say, for myself, I am going to get busy and try to elect Michelle Dillingham to council, and perhaps following through with some female members of the council will be next on our agenda.
Good plan, good strategy. Yes. Marjorie, would you fill in Sue Ellen for a moment? Just for a moment, it's a big subject, but what the pledge is.
Sure, the pledge, it's put out by the national and we're working through the state organization. They are committed to supporting efforts to get a 28th amendment to the Constitution, which would, in essence, outlaw dark money, corporate contributions, secret PAC contributions. It is it is an effort to reverse the Citizens United decision to give people more of a say than corporations and billionaires.
Thank you. And that 5 of the 6 were willing to sign this pledge. And it can help their campaign too. Hopefully we'll take a photo of them signing somehow, even with COVID, and then spread that out. Thanks. Who's next? Surprise? What was a surprise? What was a discovery? What was a challenge from tonight? How did they do handling the 1 minute limitation to answer the questions? Was that a wise decision that we made as creators of the format, or was it too limiting? I would have liked to have had them talk for 2 or 3 minutes on each subject. First, Rupa. Yes, Rupa.
Hi. I have to tell you, this was really good. I loved your 5-minute social interaction. That was just marvelous.
Thank you.
It was wonderful to see them interact. But talking about the American promise, remember what Mitch McConnell just said? Big companies should not be involved in politics. Maybe it'll take care of itself, you know? So who knows? I think that issue 3, which Raphael Prophet seemed to be the only one who is supporting it, but I also heard AFTAB say that he wants matching private funds, because the big issue with issue 3 is that they don't know where the money is going to come from. And so that being the issue, yes, the relief bill can give you 50 million, but what happens after that?
Yeah.
So I heard from AFTAB, I heard AFTAB say that he wanted private companies to match some of the funds. I thought that was new. I didn't know that. I had read through his thing, which I liked that. And the others' responses about the poverty part, that was really, really good to hear. All 5 of the candidates, because that is the bottom line. No justice will happen until the justice of, poverty is taken care of. So that was really good.
Thank you, Rupa. Yes, I was touched recently in a conversation with a woman who's very active in developing affordable housing. And she said, if the city where the city is right now, if the city got $50 million, there is no way ever, she said, in hell, that they could ever manage that $50 million. They just don't have the capacity to manage housing projects of $50 million. She kind of laughed. There's no way the city has the structure, the internal structure to do that. Antoinette is next.
Actually, Marty got there before me.
Marty.
I'll go after Marty.
I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed the 5-minute social interaction among them. I thought they were all just charming and amusing. It was great.
Good. Thank you. Antoinette.
Yes, that was a nice surprise for me too, to see their humanness and their camaraderie. And I think the challenge for me, I went in like others, went in thinking, oh yeah, maybe 1 or 2, and that's all we need to come out of the primary election with, and then one of those 2 will be selected. But wow, I really respected every single candidate, and now I have a dilemma.
Right. Did anybody go to the League of Women Voters? I was wondering how different it was.
Yeah, I was there. Marty was there, but I want to get to Chot this moment first, and then Sandy. Chot, you're next.
Yeah, I learned a lot about candidates I didn't know much about. I was very impressed with most of them. A few of them kind of like are off my radar now. But on the housing thing, if you say it's flawed, but we should do it anyway, I have a problem with that. And I really think we shouldn't be changing the charter to do something that doesn't really work right. So that's just my personal opinion.
That's right. Do you want to share who rose, if you wish to be public, Chot, who rose among the 5 to perhaps garner your vote?
I didn't know anything about Raphael, and he was impressive. Cecil, I've always liked, and he's been impressive. I like AFTAB. I've always liked AFTAB, and I think if with a younger council, we may want a younger mayor. So I'm still an AFTAB supporter.
Yeah, good. Sandy.
I've been working with the your group, and we've been working on energy conservation. One thing that I saw was AFTAB calling, I believe, for electric vehicles. And I like that idea, and I wondered if AFTAB himself had thought about even school buses, because we have so many buses, and we really need to do that. The second thing I noticed, and I really was impressed with this, I think maybe having the background to know what's going on with evictions in the housing court is very important. So that's all I'll say. I was so impressed with everybody really was. But I do think we're going to have to deal with evictions. I'm dealing with another group, and evictions are a really serious problem. We have to come to grips with that. It's not fair for our city. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Sandy. Who's next? My sense of them is for sharing here is in me, inspiration's a lot. Who can really speak for the city and kind of inspire, like, ooh, yay. He's my leader. He's my city. Like, I really enjoy, I have a hard time remembering her name, the woman from Atlanta, Keisha Lane
Brooks?
No, Keisha Lane Bottoms or something like that. You know, and I like it when she's on. I feel like, yeah, she's a powerful. And I think Bill de Blasio, I don't know much of his policies, but I do when he's on, I feel like he has a certain authority. He has a certain, of course, he's won that race pretty easily, I believe, in the past. So he knows how to inspire the city, but he kind of has that strength as a mayor that is good. And that's something that I'm looking at over these 5. Who can really hold the space? Who can hold the authority or the moral rudder for the city and the inspiration that we're all in this together? Can I really love each resident of Cincinnati? That's kind of my question. Who can do that? Erica is next.
Thank you so much, Richard. I just want to say that, you know, while I thought all of the candidates had good points to make and said all the right things, I think that, you know, politicians tend to say the right things. I personally get tired of seeing the same people kind of go through City Hall over and over again in different roles and that kind of thing. And we've had the same problems for years. So I find it a little disingenuous that the same people who've kind of been floating around that building for years and years now all of a sudden have all these great ideas about, you know, how, you know, they're going to change things. And, you know, I think it's good that we have a bunch of new people running and who are going to be there. And frankly, I think we need somebody who, you know, maybe hasn't been there before, you know, to make some changes. I think that that's what needs to happen. That's just my personal opinion. And I don't know how much time we have left for these kinds of things, Richard, but I think that a one-on-one interaction would be more insightful for us because there would be less listening to other people's answers and trying to say what they think we want to hear. If we can put them on the spot a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you. We could do one-on-one interviews with each one, Erica. That's a great idea. It's easy to do on Zoom. It's easy to record. That would be helpful. Mary Van Alstel's next.
Thanks. I think if we do that, it would be great to ask about their relationship with their city manager or who they're thinking about. Because of our way our city is governed, it would be really important to think about what are they looking for in a city manager and how are they going to work with them.
Yes.
We missed that one.
I know, that was important. Yes, that is an important question. Jane is next.
Yes, I really enjoyed this very much, but a lot of these answers I heard at the leagues thing, so it looks like they were very practiced in their answers. I would like to see a few more questions on intractable issues, such as environmental justice, fair sewer rates. We don't talk about that. How city and county are struggling over the MSD issues that goes on and on. I just like to see how they handle a hard question like that, a hardball question.
Yeah, good. We have more work to do. We have about 4 minutes left if someone, but if who would like to share? We have 4 minutes. I want to make sure we end. This is a long session. Bold New Democracy doesn't go 2 hours. I don't know if ever, but it was a good idea. Thank you, Marty, who said that, because it's fun to talk afterwards. If we were around Urban Artifact where we meet in person, we'd be having a beer and standing around and chatting. Yeah, right. Who would like to share? Is everybody just drinking and not interested in talking?
Well, I had a question before.
Yeah, thank you, Susan.
It was about how different their answers are, the way they behaved with the leagues.
Oh yeah, that was a good question. Thank you. I kind of steered off of that at that moment. Did everybody hear Susan's question about the comparing this session with the leagues or with the NAACP? I believe had one earlier too. Any comparisons between the sessions from people that were at both? Yes. Yeah, Sue. Bills, yes.
The Facebook comments on the Women League of Women Voters, there was one guy that was, totally some inappropriate comments. So I don't know if we had control on the Facebook end or what, but were we on Facebook or
no? We were not on Facebook.
And that there's pros and cons of that.
Yes.
But just being able to control, not the negativity was.
Yeah. We had a bouncer, but we didn't need a bouncer.
Yeah. That
was nice.
And I think the answers were better. I think the candidates were more relaxed, and I think I like the tone of this one much better.
Good. In 1 minute. I thought they did a good job handling the 1 minute, and we were a little bit obnoxious cutting them off, but we weren't totally obnoxious.
Yeah, can I speak?
Go ahead, sure.
Yeah, compared to the league, I did like that we let them finish their sentence, which the NAACP also allowed people to finish their sentence. I thought the NAACP had a better way of warning people that they had 30 seconds and then that they had a minute. And I'm not sure how they did the visual thing, but it showed on the screen. Well, they weren't on Zoom. I think they were on YouTube.
Yeah, they were on Zoom, but it was some of the candidates told me, I hope you don't do that method. They did not like that cutoff method at the league did, because they said it was like a big screen went blank and it was a big loud gong. And
they couldn't even finish their sentence.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The NAA did a better job, and I think that we did well, aside from our chime failing us.
I know the chime.
When Marie and Richard and I worked really hard on that chime, we thought we had it solved tonight.
But somehow the Zoom world swallowed that little chime sound.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought the way you handled it, all three of you did a great job.
Oh,
I think so too.
Yeah, thank you.
Richard, people want it. Where can they find this on YouTube? They want to know where to find this on YouTube.
Yes, this will be on YouTube within the next tomorrow. So,
but how do they find it? Can you tell them?
Bold New Democracy's YouTube channel. Bold New Democracy. Just go to YouTube and look up Bold New Democracy. And there's a channel. It'll also be on our website. It is 9 o'clock, the witching hour, and thank you for taking part. Thanks for staying late.
Your sister.
Pardon me?
She said, okay, so I watched the league one also, and just as another note, so the person who was in charge of the dinger, she said she was quite embarrassed that it was that loud. She said it just wasn't, that was a mistake.
Yeah,
it wasn't supposed to be that loud.
I know.
So it just was too, she said, oh my gosh. So unfortunately, that's what
Right. We do learn, like we got to change our system for dinging too, right, Marie?
So we now know it's possible to have extremes in both directions.
Yeah.
How do we get to the middle?
Yeah,
Make that
right.
work.
Sign. A
That's our
sign.
life this
5
year.
minute, a sign.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you all so much. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
caring.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Love, love.